Just finished watching a beautiful sunrise, trying to get my tan on. I'm not quite sure what time it is when you're watching this. Regardless, hello, my name is Craig Ross, certified Microsoft Office 365 professional. And today I'm going to be doing a video for my own website regarding Microsoft Teams from a project management perspective. Now, in terms of what Microsoft Teams is exactly, in short, it is an umbrella program that will house and accurately, easily display all elements of Office 365 suites, some nice add-ons and APIs as well. But I have a three-part case study on my website that gives a more in-depth look at Microsoft Teams, where it is going, where it is heading. Thought it'd be time for an update as we have now headed along the roadmap. Now, the project management perspective I will be covering today will be a certain social care program framework known as Liquid Logic. Don't really need to know more than that. It means more to some than others. The point is, this is from an external project management perspective. How are we going to deploy? How are we going to handle information? How are we going to deal with multiple sub-teams and communication? Ensure that it is done effectively and succinctly in 2019 and beyond. So, to get straight to it, we have at the top, which I'll just demonstrate, a search command. This will search throughout Microsoft Teams and any files that you have on Microsoft SharePoint. It will also search through any attached APIs, which I'll highlight a little bit later on. Speaking of highlight, let me just type that in as a demonstration. So a few messages that we've had on Teams that we shall get to in a moment. People, more importantly, files. It searches through the text of the files themselves, obviously, and it will show within the Microsoft Teams programs any files that you wish to view or that are available to access. So, sharing. Next down, working from the left-hand bar, we have the activities feed. Now, any mention of your name throughout Microsoft Teams will be highlighted within the activities feed. Just by looking closely, you can see some people commented on documents, commented on meetings, commented on various apps as well. And again, we shall get to what all of these are individually soon enough. Just understand that the activities bar will highlight wherever your name is mentioned. Working down a little bit further, we've got chat. So, as mentioned in my previous case studies, Skype is being eventually merged into Microsoft Teams. The day has now come. So they have now merged Skype for Business into the Microsoft Teams program. We can make phone calls, we can have conversations, we can chat. Personally, I prefer the Microsoft Teams use of Skype for Business. We can easily share files, GIFs, comments. Sorry, my ability to multitask is limited. We can send replies to each other, and it keeps a permanent log of that information for us to view later on. So these are the files that we've shared. Bucky Barnes isn't a part of organization, but here's his recent activity within the Microsoft Teams suite. Now we'll get to the other elements of this left-hand column later on. In short, we've got meetings, any upcoming meetings that you have using your Microsoft Outlook calendar within your organization. We've got calls that you can make both externally and traditionally using numbers, files which include OneDrive, Microsoft Drive, Google Drive, and shifts, which is a very important aspect of project management, and I'll get to that point at the end. But the reason why we are here, Microsoft Teams from a project management perspective, I have a number of teams that I've created for my own work. Teams doesn't always have to be about collaboration with others. It can also just be about organizing Office 365 to your liking to make things more easily accessible. But most importantly, we have an Office 365 group known as Liquid Logic Project to help us with the deployment of Liquid Logic within a certain local authority. So in regards of how this is structured from an Office 365 perspective, think of the group Liquid Logic Project as a more sophisticated group email address. You can have a group email on Microsoft Outlook. This has a lot of extra Office 365 apps attached to it. So not only do you have a group calendar, you can have group task management. You can have a repository for your videos, Microsoft Streams. We can also share our files within our own specified Office 365 SharePoint group. Now, personally, and speaking honestly, project management isn't really about the files you keep. It is more about the workflow and exchange of information that you have. I'll delve into that a little bit more later on. Alas, here is our Project Office 365 group. Now, within each group, you can have as many channels as you wish. The add channel option is here. We can make the group public or private. I've chose to make it public. We can restrict it down to various users inside and outside of the organization. We can have guests as well, depending on how your admin has set the security and compliance for Microsoft Teams. But we will save that for another time, maybe. So, groups, channels, as you can see, I've categorized the different channels into the different elements of a project. Liquid Logic revolves around creation of some forms as well. So we've got a channel for forms and processing. Obviously, what we have implemented needs to be trained. Guidance needs to be created. We have a channel to help monitor and communicate regarding that, and UAT for testing purposes. There are more examples, but this is just a demo. So within each channel, you can have what are known as tabs. Now, tabs are what you can see at the top here. You can have as many tabs as you want per channel, and the types of tabs you can have are actually quite varied, very large. We can see Yammer here. We can have Microsoft Power Apps, very useful in terms of workflow of information and processes. Just scrolling through it so you can see some elements of it. We can see SurveyMonkey, We can see Scribble, which is also good. But I digress. There are a lot of apps available that we can add in to our Office 365 channel. Now, by default, each of the channels has a conversation tab. Conversation tabs allowing us to talk about and reply to various elements. So, going back, we can see that Bucky Barnes is letting everyone know that the server has gone down. I'm just going to acknowledge that. Thank you for the heads up. You can also notify people using the @ function. I'm just going to ask and ensure that one of our members is following up the Jira ticket regarding this, and they will get a notification on their Microsoft Teams on their desktop or their phone, depending on the settings. They can also receive a notification email to their inbox. So conversations, essentially comments. Scrolling through this, I just want to demonstrate that you can comment on anything that is displayed on Microsoft Teams. We've got various tabs. We've got reports. Here we have a reminder for myself to make sure the team submits in their reports for the week. We even have notifications of meetings as well. So there was a meeting held on Saturday. We can see any comments that was happening regarding this meeting. We can see the fact that it started. And because it was recorded as well, we can also see the video or audio recording of that meeting. Very useful from an agile working perspective, especially if you are having a lot of scrums, impromptu chats and meetings. Not everyone can attend those, even though it is very simple to do so using Microsoft Teams, either via your phone app or your desktop. It is a nice way to ensure that everybody is kept into the loop if they shall please. To show a better example of a meeting in action, I will demonstrate one that has actually happened using my own Microsoft Teams group with just me in it. So just to reiterate, it is doesn't have to be necessarily for collaboration. It can also be for organization. As we can scroll up, we can see a meeting was arranged, just so you can see the message invitation for guests as well to join the meeting. See the replies in here, and I can click on this to actually view a very lengthy discussion about something that happened. Now, a little bit about Microsoft Teams. Yes, you can invite guests into meetings. They can use the Microsoft Web app in order to be a part of said video meetings. How it works is those that aren't a part of your organization, when they click on the Join Microsoft meeting link, they will be sent to a pre-lobby. Those that are a part of the organization will be notified, and if they show please, they can then move people from the pre-lobby into the actual meeting. So very, very powerful software. Great step up from what was initially Skype for Business, very restricted at first to just Skype for Business users and then eventually Skype users, but I digress. Beyond that, the functionality is essentially the same. We can share our screens, we can share files. On top of that, we can also comment on the files that we have. We can comment on the meeting that has taken place. And because of that, any meeting that is had will then be displayed within the meeting notes tab. Now, for security and compliance reasons, I'll show you a demo version of this. Here we have a wiki tab. Now, wiki tab allows you to display essentially wiki information that you might need to quickly access for one reason or another. On top of that, any comments, conversations within meetings that are held will be stored in the wiki as an individual page. So these are some of the notes that were taken within the meeting by somebody, and it can be shared for the rest of the team to view. Here is another meeting that was held as well, and some notes from that. So very powerful. And just to reiterate and hit home, especially from a project management perspective, documents are more of a business as usual. Project deployment especially is more about better communication, better transfer of information and sharing of information so everybody can work effectively. That is enough regarding the conversations, but yeah, as you can see, any tab, any comment that is made against the file can be viewed and commented on. This will be displayed within the conversations page. So, continuing on, another default tab that is available is the files. We have the ability to just share and dump our files within here. Now, this might be for commenting purposes. The glory of Microsoft Teams is that it also includes Microsoft Web Apps. We are able to edit, view any document within the Microsoft Teams program, if we so please. There are options to download and to open up into our standard programs that we have on our computer. But the key point here is accessibility and also commenting. So here we see another view that we have here, a discussion that was had between me and Bucky regarding this document that was uploaded. It was also, initially attached as a part of a dummy meeting that was held, and here we can see a little bit of conversation behind it. We'll just reply to that. Great. So as mentioned, we have the ability to add on cloud storage as well. And I think this is a great time to talk about information architecture, security and compliance. So Microsoft SharePoint storage of files uses security, Office 365 security and compliance, file retention. These are the things that are natively used within the SharePoint document library. So while we can open this in SharePoint, and it's opened up on the web version of SharePoint, and yes, within this document library, this is known as a document library from a SharePoint perspective, we can apply file retentions if we have them configured. We can apply certain permissions also if we have them configured. Microsoft Teams focuses on collaboration and sharing of information. So the default files tab does not have this native aspect of setting permissions, for example, setting the retention policy. These options just aren't available directly from Microsoft Teams. You need to go into SharePoint and the appropriate document library. That being said, it doesn't mean that we can't have Microsoft SharePoint document libraries within Microsoft Teams. As shown earlier within the Generals tab, we have reports. Now this is a web view of the document library, so we're cheating the system a little bit, but Microsoft are fully aware of this functionality. Here we can get some of that additional SharePoint goodness into our forms. We've got our default content types available here. We have our different kinds of views. We have file permissions. We have data retention policies. All of that good stuff still within Microsoft Teams. So just understand that the option is there to do so. But the Files tab itself, it's just about throwing some files in there, allowing people to look at them. We can have a conversation around said files. SharePoint, more for. This is a fairly complex idea, especially coming from a SharePoint perspective. In short, from the aspect of Microsoft Teams, any file that is kept in the file section of the tab, anybody that is within that group can see the files that are dumped or shown within this files tab. They can also see the cloud storage that has been added to this files tab also. From a Teams perspective, if you do not want them to have access to any of those files, you may need to create a completely separate group in which for people to collaborate. A manager Liquid Logic project group, for example, just for managers. They've simplified it because SharePoint is so comprehensive. So Microsoft Teams also does not have security and compliance file retention permission structures when it comes to how files, documents are stored within there. The key part of this is collaboration. Is the file on there? Yes. Let's take a look at it. As I've shown before, let's have a nice comment on it so we can talk about the information that is in the document itself. When we're talking about business as usual, storing of documents becomes more of a long-term thing. This is where security and compliance starts to shine. And understand, please, I am a Microsoft certified professional. Even if I wasn't, the security and compliance of SharePoint is the best out, as is the file retention. It extends across the whole Office 365 suite, depending on how it is configured. Especially if you use Azure Active Directories, these files can retain all sorts of retention and permission structures, even outside of the SharePoint document libraries that they originally came on. But this isn't about Microsoft SharePoint, this is about Teams. So to succinctly put it, Microsoft Teams file handling, more for collaboration and information sharing purposes. Business as usual, long-term storage of documents. This is where you'd want to use SharePoint. It's beautiful metadata along with it. It's a great way for us to migrate files across to Microsoft Teams and to Microsoft SharePoint if need be. But as I've kind of mentioned multiple times now, project management is not really about file storage. Now, if we were to store documents for long-term business as usual processes, I am one to always advocate our eventual move to SharePoint. All glory be to what is known as metadata, data about the data we keep. Again, that is for another session, perhaps. But all you need to know is that the functionality is there. Anybody has the ability to view the files that are delivered on this file page as well. So from an information architecture perspective, please be aware that anybody that is a part of this group can view the files that are displayed on this page. If you wish to restrict what is seen by whom, it would be best to store said files within Microsoft SharePoint, where we can have a greater hold on what we see. Now, a great example of that is a tab that I have created called Reports. Now, this is a repository for all of the project members to upload their red, amber, green reports that they have constructed on a weekly basis. Now, because this is a view of a document library within SharePoint, we have greater control of what is seen. So I can only see the reports that have been uploaded by myself. Here we have the periods covered that is also logged, the amount of money that is utilized. We can also see the approval status, whether it is in review. We can also make our SharePoint metadata look very pretty using JSON formatting. For more information, please Google those words. Point being is that we have a nice beautiful collection of metadata, be it calculated fields, maintaining our budgets, finding out weekends, and all of that can be maintained within the SharePoint app, within Microsoft Teams, or in this particular case, within the Word document itself. I must say at this point, shout outs to stakeholder maps for the template that we are using today. And yeah, we're about to see how metadata can be incorporated into our Microsoft Word document. As you can see, we can change our reporting period if need be. Our amount utilized as well. That would also be reflected in the metadata we keep. But we also have the Word document itself and all of our beautiful qualitative information that we hold in there. But we've taken the important bits out, and those important bits as metadata can serve on Microsoft Power BI reports, for example. We can export our metadata to Excel if need be. All sorts of weird and wonderful things. Power apps as well, which I will show in a later video. Moving swiftly on. So that's one example of how SharePoint information architecture kind of blends in with Microsoft Teams. We can also have third-party apps as well. Such as Jira's. This example is of a SharePoint page that just displays all key dates and objectives that might be relevant to the team at large. In this particular case, we have 73 days left, 56 seconds before we go live. Kept it general here, so while this doesn't blend in with the calendar, as you can see with some of the examples on here, just useful key dates that some people would like to know. But beyond that, there is also a web part that we can display our actual project group calendar as well. Here we can see some catch-up Microsoft team meetings, essentially our weekly catch-up, not our impromptu scrums that we might have. Again, just displaying how we can keep everybody within the loop using a project within a project setting. Okay, a better planner to look at. Let's switch it up, look at a different channel. So there's multiple planners within this group. A planner is actually a great task management system available off Office 365. It runs on agile working systems. So we're talking buckets, task allocation, labeling. People will get notifications when assigned tasks via Outlook, also when they've completed tasks as well. So very nice. Also, we can see some chart information and break down the data accordingly. So this is an example of a Microsoft Planner. Again, remember, Microsoft Teams is an umbrella program under that helps house, the Office 365 apps available. So in this particular case, we've got our forms and processes agile workboard. Here we have our different buckets for the different areas of Liquid Logic that we are in need of going through the deployment process for, scoping, building, testing, what have you. So yeah, there's different ways we can break this down. We've got the Content Learning and Disabilities team, CDLT. Acronyms are a funny thing within social services. We also have the shared live aspect of Liquid Logic, all with pretty generic tasks attached to it and different people. So we can see we need to agree a new process for this particular form. We can click on it to view its progress. We can see that we also can have subtasks. Really, this should be in progress if we've completed one of the tasks. And similar to all other bits of Microsoft Teams, we can have a comment and conversation system within here. All updates will be shown in the relevant conversation tab in the same channel. Add another comment here. We've got some due dates. And most importantly as well, we've got some labeling. Allows us to get a nice general view, because while we are creating a lot of forms, all of them have the same kind of deployment process that I really just mentioned a few moments ago. So we have our organization here by buckets. We could also group by assigned to, who's doing what. We can see how far they are. But provided that we have got the labeling system set up correctly, and really you can label these how you want in relation to your project. It makes labels pretty powerful and across the board. So here we can see how many scoping tasks do we have. We've got one for shared lives. We've got another for CDLT. How many workflow processes are we trying to build here? Again, one for each of these groups and the building stage. So there's different ways that we can break down this information. Schedule view gives you a nice calendar format of deadline dates, start and beginning dates. Let us reduce the carbon footprint by not using and disposing of post-it notes that we won't recycle properly, but by using electronic post-it notes via Office 365 Planner instead. A lot more healthier, a lot more efficient. Just so you can see the comments in action. If there are any updates to the planner, we can make a comment in here. I'll just make another one. This will be reflected into the conversations tab under the process and forms. So we can go back to our conversation and see that a conversation is now revolving around the process and forms apps. Hey, we've updated this. What do you think? Yes, we think that that's a good change. I like it. I see it. Other tabs that we have available via Office 365, like I said before, the whole suite, Notebook, Microsoft OneNote, we can all share from the same notebook, Again, very recommended. Nice repository for any Q&A questions, any research and development, making sure everyone is on the same page in terms of any processes or discussions with stakeholders that were held. So don't need to explain the wonders of Microsoft OneNote. What I do want to move into, though, is the use of some third-party apps. So one that is used here in this our example that we have is SurveyMonkey. Now, APIs have different levels of integration within Microsoft Teams. I will just show this from a training perspective. And while I can't actually show you for data protection purposes the ins and outs of this form, we've got our adult survey, links into our actual SurveyMonkey website where we can view the results and look at the forms. But also, depending on the integration, we can also see that we've got integration into the search and list of commands at the top. Microsoft Teams incorporates things such as bots. So we could ask our SurveyMonkey questions. This is the bot page, nice introduction on how to use it. We could send some questions to the bot and it will create some forms on our behalf. Very nice. A lot of APIs use bots. Another aspect that they use are native Microsoft Teams apps. Two very powerful aspects that I will not be covering in this video. We're trying to keep it short and sweet. But just understand that the functionality for these kind of things are more than readily available. We'll keep that. I would like to thank you for listening to this video introduction training of Microsoft Teams from a project management perspective. We've tried to keep it under 50 minutes. We might just split it in two. I'm now watching an interesting but not as nice sunset somewhere else in a completely different location. But yeah, we shall continue with the Microsoft Teams themes in some subsequent videos. I hope this is helpful. Feel free to employ me.